Hi, my name's Kristen Anderson. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the books that we'd featured recently on social media. But because you're probably going to be seeing this in Pride Month, I also wanted to talk real quick about a couple of titles that I thought might be great reads to celebrate Pride. The first one is called Detransition Baby. It's a recent book by Tori Peters, and it's a book about the trans female experience in New York City. And I think that as a book to read about the trans experience, it's likely to be more useful as a book that is a window to that experience, because it does a lot of work talking about some of the difficulties of life as a trans woman in New York. In fact, one of the characters chooses to detransition, not because he no longer sees himself as a woman, but because life as a trans woman is hard. And then there's a storyline about pregnancy and becoming a family and what that might look like. And it's fascinating and hard sometimes, but I really found it compelling and worth reading. In addition, I thought that this would be a great time to highlight a series called the Wayward Children series by Seanan McGuire. It starts with Every Heart a Doorway. It's been around for a while. The books in the series are novella length, and in the particular case of the first book, Every Heart a Doorway, it introduces a school where kids who have slipped into alternate fantasy worlds and returned end up at, because it's disconcerting to go to these fantasy worlds. So this is a school where Alice, coming back from Wonderland, might have found herself at, or the kids coming back from Narnia might have found themselves at, but it's a completely separate fantasy setting, and it's very LGBT plus inclusive, and just a really great fantasy read. But the books that we've featured on social, the first one I'm going to talk about is The Swallowed Man by Edward Carey. I think I've mentioned this on a video before, and it is a really cool retelling of Pinocchio, and it is told from the point of view of Geppetto. And it is told while he is in the belly of the whale. And it is weird and quirky and dark and kind of philosophical. And it's not going to be a book for everyone, but if it's your kind of book, it's a good book. And I thought that people who enjoyed Wicked, the book that Gregory Maguire wrote, that the musical Wicked is based on, might also enjoy The Swallowed Man, and vice versa. So if you've read Swallowed Man and enjoyed it and haven't explored some of Gregory Maguire's books yet, it might be worth checking them out. The next book I wanted to talk about was a book called The Rib King. This is a book by Lady Hubbard. It is on my TBR pile right now. I have not read it yet, but I am excited about it. It is, it's billed as Upstairs, Downstairs meets Parasite. It's a historical book, and it deals with it deals with a family and and issues that are experienced specifically by the BIPOC community, related to kind of caricatures of their faces appearing on a rib sauce label. And it sounds really fascinating. It's gotten great reviews, and I'm really looking forward to reading it when I get my hands on it. But it did make me think about, because it had that kind of upstairs, downstairs meets Parasite kind of set up. It made me think about a book that I read recently called When No One Is Watching, which is a thriller by Alyssa Cole set in the present day. So super different than The Rib King, but it also kind of is a book attempt at doing something that's kind of movie-ish, in that it has it's billed as Get Out meets Rear Window. And it is kind of a walk through some of the structural inequities that are faced by BIPOC communities in gentrifying urban neighborhoods like Brooklyn. The next one that we talked about was My Brilliant Life by Aran Kim. And this is a new book it's a first novel by a South Korean author that's gotten lots of great press. The main character is a young person who is suffering from the condition that, the rare condition that people sometimes get where they age very quickly, and is kind of deals with kind of an intergenerational story, and kind of as a gift to their parents telling the story of their life. So there's this multi-generational component and a Korean cultural setting. And so usually I pair these books with other books that I've read and I think might be worth checking out if you haven't read them yet. And this one made me think about a book called Pachinko, called Pachinko by Minjin Lee, which is another book that crosses multiple generations, deals very specifically with Korean culture. In the case of Pachinko, it deals with colonization and people who are culturally Korean living in Japan, but it follows a family through multiple generations and talks about how the stories of the generation before kind of influences the stories of the subsequent generations. So it has some similar kind of thematic material. Finally, we featured Family for Beginners by Sarah Morgan. This is one of those books that kind of we think about as a beachy book, as a kind of heartwarming. It's got a little bit of romance. It's got family stuff. In this one in particular, we're talking about a woman who is dating a man who has a daughter and trying to figure out how to integrate her kind of relationship with this new man and figure out how to build a relationship with his daughter. Oftentimes, Sarah Morgan gets compared to authors like Kristen Higgins and Jill Shalvis. And so I also wanted to mention that both of those authors have books that we have on order records for. Kristen Higgins has Pack Up the Moon coming soon to us, and Jill Shalvis has Love for Beginners coming soon. So those are the books that I had to talk about this month, and thank you for listening. See you next time.